Հաղորդման հովանավոր Dignity Health Glendale Memorial Hospital.
I'm Dr. Kalus Dukar. I'm a blood and cancer specialist at Dignity Health Glendale Memorial Hospital. Many times I talk to my patients and they tell me that they are having bleeding and they don't pay attention to it. Blood is red. It's just like the red light in traffic. It tells you stop and pay attention. It's no different. So if you see blood coming from anywhere, seek attention. There's something wrong.
Բարի երեկո սիրելի բարեկամներ։ Այսօրվա մեր հայտակիրն է Cultural Impact Foundation-ի աշխատանքները թե Սփյուռքի մեջ, թե Հայաստանի մեջ։ Cultural Impact Foundation-ը կազմակերպված է հասարակական դարիներուն ընթացքին եւ իրենց աշխատանքներուն կդանին թե Սփյուռքի մեջ եւ թե Հայաստանի մեջ։
Cultural Impact Foundation ոչ շահութաբեր կազմակերպություն, որի նպատակն է փաստավավերագրական ֆիլմերի եւ այլ մեդիա նախագծերի միջոցով արծարծել հայոց ցեղասպանության եւ նման ոճրագործությունների նյութը, հասարակությանը ներկայացնել ոճրագործությունները վերապրած եւ կյանքի ծանր ճանապարհ անցած մարդկանց իրական եւ բացառիկ պատմություններ, տեղեկացնել, կրթել եւ նպաստել մարդկության դեմ իրագործվող հանցանքների միջազգային դատապարտմանը։ Հիմնադրամի ներկայիս նախագծերի թվում է փաստագրական ֆիլմերի հեղինակ ռեժիսոր Բարետ Մարոնյանի նոր Titanic Love ֆիլմը, ինչպես նաև Հայաստանի Թավշյա հեղափոխությանը նվիրված Bloodless կինոնկարը։ Սեպտեմբերի 7-ին Թաղլյան մշակութային համալիրում տեղի կունենա Cultural Impact հիմնադրամի գալա երեկոն, որի ողջ հասույթը կհատկացվի Titanic Love ֆիլմի նկարահանման եւ արտադրության աշխատանքներին։ Նախագծերի մասին մանրամասնելու եւ հիմնադրամի ընթացիկ աշխատանքներն ու մարտահրավերները ներկայացնելու նպատակով այսօր մեր տաղավարում ենք հյուրընկալել հիմնադրամի փոխնախագահ Հրայր Koutnouyanին։ Ֆլորիդա նահանգից Skype-ով զրույցին կմիանան հիմնադրամի նախագահ Քրիս Սասսունին եւ կինոռեժիսոր Բարետ Մարոնյանը։
Սերպագամներ այսօրվա մեր թեման է Cultural Impact Foundation-ը եւ իրենց աշխատանքները։ Մեր ստուդիոյի մեջ մեր հյուրն է Dr. Hrair Koutnouyանը, Vice Chairman-ը, բարի եկած եք։
Բարի տեսանք, ինչպես եք։
Լավ ենք։ Իս Skype-ով առաջին անգամ լալով որ Skype-ով դիտենք երկու անդամներ Ֆլորիդայեն Dr. Քրիս Սասսունին, որ Cultural Impact Foundation-ի chairman-ն է կամ նախագահը, եւ հայտնի Բարետ Մարոնյանը, բարի եկած եք։ Գլսեք կոր։
Այո։
Բիդի բարեք մեր հայդակիր անգլերենով, որտեվ մեր հյուրերը կուզեն, որ անգլերենով արտահայտեն։ Chris, as a chairman, բարի եկած ես։
Բարի գուն Mike.
Սիրով. Chris, as the chairman, can you give us a little bit history of the organization, when it was founded, what was the mission? Just briefly, just to educate us as public to get more information regarding the organization.
The common bond amongst the people involved in Cultural Impact Foundation is really starts and is really the essence of it is through Barad Maronian's works, The Orphans of the Genocide and Women of 1915. We were all deeply affected and impacted by those documentaries. And so as a result of that, in 2017, a group of us, Dr. Hrair Koutnouyan, Kohar Pelter, who is the secretary, and myself as the president and chairman, came together with a mission to commission and support unique cultural projects that can improve our understanding of historical events by revealing acts of human kindness and heroism in the face of adversity. And so that was a central mission statement. And what we did is we initially evaluated several projects and decided to commission Armanoid Production, which is essentially Barad Maronian's production company, for our first two projects. And those projects are Titanic Love, which is the story of Armenians who were going through the Hamidian massacres and ended up on the Titanic thinking that they were escaping the horrors of the Hamidian massacres prior to the Armenian genocide, only to end up in the world's largest and supposedly invincible vessel and floating in the North Atlantic Sea. And so there is a real deep story about those that survived that trip, came to America, were reunited in love with some of them from their original villages. And so that's really the story that we have commissioned so far, which is called Titanic Love. But in addition, because Barad Maronian was in Armenia at the time of the recent bloodless revolution, he has a tremendous amount of footage from that and is interested in creating a documentary. And so that becomes the second project for Cultural Impact Foundation. So that's really the essence of what we've done recently. But I think that there is a much bigger vision for Cultural Impact Foundation that came about as the result of what happened with the orphans of the genocide and women of 1915. And that is that those documentaries served to educate both Armenians and non-Armenians about what really happened during this horrible period of Armenian history, and to educate the world so that no longer would people throughout the world that saw these documentaries ask the question, Hrair, which has been a problem that has existed throughout my whole life. When we would talk about our background as Armenians, people would look at us and say, who are the Armenians? What is Armenia? And so it is our hope that we can use the power of digital media, specifically documentaries, to push the story and the history of our people, the culture of our people, and our deep heritage to both Armenians and non-Armenians alike throughout the world. And what was clearly demonstrated from Orphans of the Genocide and Women of 1915 is that this medium had the power to be disseminated across the globe. And in fact, just in the United States alone, it's estimated that Barad Maronian's Orphans of the Genocide was seen by some 50 million households through a partnership with PBS. And so think of the impact that these documentaries can have in pushing out the history of our people to those that either are American Armenians like I was, and who knew very little about both my family history and the history of the Armenian people, but also for non-Armenians who will recognize our people for who they are and what we have survived. It's a little bit long, but hopefully that's succinct.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Hrair, how did you get involved in this organization? Were you there from the get-go, or?
Each of us knew Barad through different circumstances. So I was a childhood friend of Barad's. We went to the same school. Of course, I came and ended up on the West Coast. He ended up in Florida. And through a mutual friend, I was reintroduced to Barad after he published his book, Orphans of the Genocide. Chris's history is a little different. Chris was in Florida, and Barad reached out to him again when he was working on his first project, and Chris got reacquainted with his past and his glorious family history. He's the grandson of Garo Sassouni. And then Kohar knew Barad also through his work of the Orphans of the Genocide, because Kohar's dad is an orphan, and Barad speaks of her dad through his book, in his book.
Kohar's father was my teacher in
There
Lebanon.
you go.
I mean, what a small world.
So each
this
of
is
us
unbelievable.
ended up in the same sphere through very different paths.
Amazing. So is there a board?
We are the board. Chris is the chairman, Kohar is the secretary, and I'm the vice president.
And it was formed back in 17?
We formed in 2017.
Yes.
It's incorporated in Florida. However, we also have reciprocal legal status in California.
California as well.
So we can conduct activities in both states.
Let me go to Barad. Barad, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. I'm here.
This is wonderful. I mean, you put together a great organization with this fine gentleman. So what is your mission? I mean, to educate us on the history of genocide through films, and even now with this Titanic, you're going back even before genocide. with the Hamidian massacres and so forth that happened in Adana. Is that what you're trying to do through the Titanic to show that?
Yes. Well, first of all, I'm very grateful to my friends, the three of them who started this foundation, and the the whole reason for this is what I believe in fact, is that documentary film is one of the best tools that hasn't been used by Armenians as it should be, because it is a way of educating, especially non-Armenians, about Armenian culture, not necessarily the genocide. I mean, genocide is one of the main issues that we have, and we need to let the world know about it. But besides that, we have, as a people, we have our culture, we have our values, our heritage. We need to introduce this to people, exactly as Chris said earlier. Some people say, they don't even know where Armenia is. I mean, in your case in California, it's a little different in Glendale. But if you look at the United States in general, in most of the states, they might think twice about if you mention Armenia. They say, where is that? Russia? I mean, that's happened to us. I'm sure Chris too in Florida here a lot. So, and we have a beautiful culture, a very rich culture. Our arts, our heritage, we need to share this with our fellow Americans and the world. And I think documentary film is one of the best tools, educational tools, that can, link us with our fellow Americans around us, citizens.
We're going to take a short break. I mean, it's very interesting how you three gentlemen got together from different backgrounds, but still one common, which is the Armenian identity and Armenian culture. And you created something very fantastic. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll discuss further the activities of the organization. We're back, and so we're discussing Culture Impact Foundation and its activities and their films and so forth. Bharat, I have a question for you. Why it was necessary to form a foundation? I mean, you've been doing films and documentary for many, many years. Why all of a sudden last year this Culture Impact Foundation was formed? What was the purpose of it?
Well, the Armenian documentary film, and I'm not saying documentary films in Armenian language, I'm saying documentaries that are about Armenian topics, or even the filmmaking, Armenian filmmaking. I'm not talking about Armenian films in Armenia, which we have amazing, filmmakers in Armenia for the local Armenian or the diasporan Armenian public. What I'm talking about, documentaries or films that are done on the international standard, that should be for international consumption. We are at the baby steps of that, and I have a lot of filmmaker friends, and we all know that as of now there is no market commercial market, for Armenian films. And it will be, I'm sure it will change in the future, but at this point, one of the ways of creating these films and make them available to the public is by, starting projects that are not for profit. Because if it's for profit, it means you will need investors, and what the investor needs is returns. And since there is no huge market for Armenian filmmaking at this stage of the game, we have to resort to not-for-profit projects. And I thought, this would be the perfect way of starting this and introducing to the public, especially non-Armenian public. This is the goal. I mean, the amazing thing between cultural impact and what I believe in is the fact that we both believe that we should introduce Armenian heritage to non-Armenians. That's what we concentrate on. None of our films or our projects are made for Armenian consumption. They're primarily made for non-Armenian consumption. So since there is no commercial market for that, unfortunately, that's the fact. The one of the ways, the workaround, as they say, is not-for-profit projects, and that's where foundations come in handy.
So, Hrair, since Bharat mentioned that he needs this umbrella of a nonprofit entity in order to support the activities he's doing. So where are you guys? I mean, do you have enough funds, or what are you doing to raise money? I mean, that's a lot of work trying to raise money and do events.
It absolutely is, and that's why we're here, and that's why we're holding the gala. Bharat is very humble. You know, he's done a lot of work over 10 years as a one-man show. And I think all of us realized that if he was going to continue to be productive and be effective and efficient, he needs a support group. And this foundation presents that support group for him and for other artists like Bharat who think the same way, who maintain the similar standards. So our goal is to have Bharat not worry about the finances. Our goal is for Bharat to be able to go to his studio and work on his projects. If he has the support, we all feel that it wouldn't take him 4 or 5 years to be able to complete a project. I hope one day we will be at an enviable position where the only limiting factor is Bharat's time and not the resources. So the way we're, to come to the second part of your question, the way we're raising our funds, one is through Bharat's supporters, because he's got a very loyal group of supporters over 10 years. The second is by forming partnerships with other nonprofit organizations and foundations. The third would be through events like this one. And we're hoping that at this gala and future community events, new people will come, new people will be introduced to his work so that this process really speeds up. Because time is of the essence. We don't want to wait another 5 years for another wonderful work that Bharat can produce.
Besides the gala, any other activities that the organization is putting out, any fundraising events, any gatherings at homes and so forth, in order to raise, number one, awareness, number two, some critically needed funds to fund some of these projects?
Absolutely. So this is our first event. And following this, I think we will continue Bharat's already existing formula of community events in different communities in different countries. Bharat has traveled across the country, across the world, to different communities to present his work, both to Armenian communities as well as to international organizations and festivals. And I hope he continues to do that. But for now, this is our first step. Like Bharat said, we're in baby steps, and then we will hopefully continue to repeat the same formula in other towns, in other communities.
Bharat, can you tell us a little bit about the Titanic film you're trying to make? It's very interesting to me to know there were 2 Armenians. I mean, that's news to me. And when you told me that about it, I was fascinated, obviously, and I was taken back. But there's 2 survivors were Armenians. I mean, that shows the Armenian spirit by itself. We are survivors as a nation, as people, and that reinforces the same thing in my mind. We as Armenian people. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. Let me first tell you that the reason I picked that topic is, first of all, it's a beautiful, beautiful story because it is a bookend love story. And the other reason is that it interests, of course, the Armenians because it's about Armenians, and also the non-Armenians because it's about the Titanic. I mean, Titanic is a huge story, and it's a real story. It's a true story. And by the way, it's not only there were 2 survivors, it's true, but there were 6 Armenians on the ship. 6 Armenians were on the ship. They got on board in France, not England, but France, in Cherbourg. And, what we're going to concentrate on is one person, one individual, whose name was David Vartanian. So David Vartanian was one of the survivors. He was from Keri, region. and he had left behind his wife to come to America. This is happening in 1912. Now, why were these 6 Armenians on the ship? I mean, they were not going on a cruise. They were running away from the repercussions of the Hamidian massacres, which is the precursor of the genocide, and we don't talk about it a lot because we're really consumed with the recognition and awareness of the genocide. I mean, about 300,000 Armenians were massacred by the Sultan, and we don't talk about about that a lot. Anyway, so that will be the background story, the Hamidian massacres, of course, briefly, and we'll be concentrating on the survival story. Basically, it's a double survival. These guys not only survived the Hamidian massacres, they also survived the sinking of the unsinkable ship, and they made it to America, and they lived the American dream, at least 2 of them.
Right.
But the story continues. They, fast forward 100 years, we followed their not only second, third generation, but 4th generation. And today, the Vartanians have their 5th generation. They're about 5, 6-year-old children. And, we have these individuals in the film, too. So the fact is that, the heritage continues. Even 100 years later, the 5th generation stayed Armenian in the United States, even though they lived the American dream, but they kept their heritage. So
great.
That's
a fantastic story
basically.
by itself. Chris, you're in Florida. You're away from California. Do you visit California, where the Armenian community is based primarily, and you can conduct some activities here? I know you're going to have the event next month, but maybe some other activities in California.
The answer is there's a whole story behind myself in California, in that for the past 10 years, actually starting almost at the time that I first met Bared, I was actually going to LA to visit my cousins and my late Hopar Papyan. So he was the last surviving son of Garo Sassouni. And together, at the encouragement of Bared, we were trying to piece together my family history, which I knew nothing about. So through the work that we did there, 2 things came about. There was a formal presentation that I have delivered several times about the life and times of Garo Sassouni, but during the creation of the Orphans of the Genocide, Bared said to me, in Beirut, there are photos of Lola Sassouni everywhere. And I said, well, why? Because I didn't know anything about her. And he said, well, she was very involved with the orphans. Now, I had heard something about the Lebanese Red Cross, but I didn't understand anything really about her life. And so at his encouragement, I would make regular trips to California. And with Hopar Papyan, we would sit down at the kitchen table, and he would bring me a suitcase that had old photos, including some of Lola, and slowly but surely we pieced together her life. And again, at the invitation of Bared, I had an opportunity to twice present to ARS events, one in Watertown, where the ARS chapter is named after Lola Sassouni, and then also at 2 more regional ARS events, one in Canada and one in New York City. So yes, I have come to California fairly frequently. I've gotten to know a kind of extended family there that all helped in the development of my family history and getting me to really reconnect with my Armenian heritage.
Well, that's fantastic.
That's what really happened. Okay. If it wasn't for Bared reaching out to me in 2009, hearing a humble voice on the other side of a phone that said, I'm Bared Maronian, and I want to create, and I'm in the process of trying to create a documentary about the orphans of the genocide. And I said, wait, stop. I said, how can you produce a film about the genocide? I thought that the State Department would stop any such activity. That's what my father had told me. And he said to me, listen, times have changed and it doesn't matter. I'm moving forward on this project. And so I did everything that I could to help him in raising money. And we had an event at our church for him. As time progressed, I would continue to contribute to him. And I remember very distinctly one day, this is why Cultural Impact Foundation is so important. There was a day when I was driving home from work and I was talking to Barrett. I pulled up in my driveway and here's what I heard. Chris, I'm done. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I can't do this by myself anymore. I want to stop the project. I begged him. I said, do not do that. I, as essentially a new Armenian who knows nothing about my history, I have waited my entire life. I was in my 50s at the time, 50s. And I said to him, please don't stop this project. Wow. And so he said, I'm going to move this forward. I continued to contribute. Eventually, he had the DVD produced. I saw it on PBS. And I introduced him to my Hope Arpapkan, and in Orphans of the Genocide, he actually interviewed Hope Arpapkan about what Garo and Lola Sassouni did in terms of saving orphans in the Hunus region, Daron region, and saving them by helping them get to safety in what we call today Armenia, in Kars and in Gyumri. Wow. So that's why it's so critical for me when Barrett said we need to create a vehicle for raising money so that I can focus on documentaries. I said, sign me up. And we have worked diligently since last year to establish the foundation, to get certified in the state of Florida, to be able to solicit for donation. We're now a qualified corporation in the state of California. We have a website called culturalimpactfoundation.org, where people can go to the website, learn about our events, and be able to donate. And we're planning this gala that's coming up on September 7th. So we've come a long way, and that's why it's so critical.
We're gonna take a short break. We're almost at the end of our second segment, and we're gonna talk about your gala when we come back. Սիրելի բարեկամներ, այսօրվա մեր թեման է Cultural Impact Foundation եւ իրենց աշխատանքները Սպիրկի մեջ. Hrair, you have a gala coming next month, right?
Yes.
In a month.
On Friday, September 7th.
Okay, Friday, September the 7th. Where?
At Koutnouyan Hall in Hollywood.
Okay. What is the theme, number one? Let's talk about it. I mean, what's the purpose of the gala?
So this is our coming out event.
Okay, you're just introducing yourself to the public.
Right. So no one knows us. We have a website. People know Barrett, but they don't know us as the foundation, a nonprofit foundation with a particular mission. So our secretary, Kohar Pelter, has put together a wonderful gala committee. These are very talented, dedicated, and resourceful individuals who have worked diligently and continue to do so to introduce our work to the community. So we're hoping that we will have a turnout that's commensurate to their efforts, and we're very excited. We have a wonderful program. We are having Barrett and Chris fly out from Florida. We have Alan G. as our entertainment.
Great entertainment.
Yes, and of course we're going to top that off with Harut. He's going to be present, unplugged, to perform, Harut Pambukjan. Right. Barrett is going to introduce his two works that he's actively working on, the Titanic as well as the Bloodless Revolution in Armenia. Chris is going to formally introduce our organization. And I hope that with the excitement and our Master of Ceremonies is Dr. Viken Sepilyan. Oh. A wonderful person, a good friend who is very much aware of Barrett's work because the Armenian Medical Society had honored Barrett a couple of years ago, so he knows his work.
We were together that night, actually.
That's right.
We were honored together.
That's right. And we hope that you will be together on Friday night
on September 7th as well.
And that's what our current project is, to let the people know that we do exist, that we are working on two very significant projects. You know, it's a difficult theme to introduce to people. People are used to participate in different types of humanitarian works, but art and documentary filmmaking is a novel concept, I think, for most people. We're lucky that Barrett already has a following. We're hoping that we can capitalize on that following and double or triple the support that he currently enjoys.
Did you guys ask other organizations like AGBU or others to either participate or support your efforts? Especially, this is a pan-Armenian type film and something that all Armenians agree on. I mean, there should not be a factional thing. It just,
of course,
the bloodless revolution in Armenia, which was greatly supported by all the people, and plus the Armenian genocide. I mean, every Armenian agrees on that.
You know, there are a lot of wonderful organizations, and they all have their missions, and they all have their goals and projects that are actively working on. And as you mentioned, AGBU and others like AGBU have their own plans and projects. None of them have the mission as is stated in our mission, which is to support cultural projects, to tell our story, because we have a very good story to tell the world. And we want to tell it through the lens of an optimist that not only talks about our tragedy, but our triumphs and our ability to rise from the challenges. And no single organization has that as their focus. So they all have their own projects to concentrate on, and we're hoping that we are filling a void that currently exists in the diaspora and in Armenia.
Because we don't have any organization, to my knowledge, that's concentrating on the films and the arts, and you know, specifically for that purpose, right? I mean, every Armenian organization is either cultural or has a mission, philanthropic, schools, and so forth. But this is specifically for this purpose.
We're open for all of them to come and contribute and assist us, as you said, because these themes are universal, and not just for Armenians. We are telling the Armenian story, but these are very relevant to everyone. Everyone understands tragedy, and everyone understands acts of kindness and acts of heroism. And I think it's a wonderful way to entertain and educate. And I hope that we succeed in doing just that.
Besides this gala, which is September 7th, any other events for the rest of this year?
We're taking this one step at a time. This was a big undertaking for a new project, just because people don't know us yet. But I hope we're going to keep Barit's
It's like an introduction to the community.
And we're hoping that we keep Barit's social schedule very busy, because if we succeed, as we hope, as I hope we will, then he should have a very busy fall and next spring.
We're going to take a very short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to Barit, especially for these films, segments in Armenia that he was in the middle of the revolution. I'd like to know a little bit more about that. We'll be right back. Ձեր պայգամներ այսօրվա մեր թեման է Բարետ Մարոնյանը եւ the Culture Foundation-ը եւ իրենց աշխատանքները. Barit, you're doing a documentary regarding the recent events in Armenia, and you were there in the midst of the revolution. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Sure, but please allow me, before I answer to your question, let me pick up on where Hrair left as far as Armenian organizations. I'm very happy and grateful and proud that almost every single Armenian organization that I know have supported my projects individually. You mentioned AGBU. AGBU was one of them. ARS was one of the major contributors to Women of 1915, which I'm very grateful for that. ANC has always been there. Hamaskayin, Tekeyan, they've always supported, all of them have supported my previous projects. And for the gala, actually, all of them are invited. Some have already responded, and I'm sure all of them will respond. And as you said, this is a pan-Armenian project. This is our face to the world, basically. We're showing the Armenian face to the world. That's what we're doing with this. As far as the project Bloodless, I called it Bloodless.
Sounded like bloodless surgery, so that's what I was thinking. What do you mean bloodless? But I thought it was like...
Well, I'll explain to you why I named it that. It's called Bloodless because in this day and age, we hear, especially in the Middle East or sometimes in Europe, even here in the United States, when there are protests, there is always a riot. And the riots, there is tires burning, showcases being smashed, people, hurting each other. I was there, and I saw none of those. It's true that the police was brutal at one point. There was some brutality on the police, the police side, but nothing came from the people's side. And I was amazed. Since I was there by the youth, how determined they were, how polite they were. They were inviting, the police to join them, and eventually, as we know, they did. It was an amazing experience. I've had such experiences twice in my life. One was when I went to Western Armenia for the first time for filming Women of 1915 and Orphans of the Genocide. And the second experience that I had, similar experience, was me being in the middle of the revolution, because I was there invited by the Aurora Prize to show my film Women of 1915 there at the AGBU Center in Armenia, in Yerevan. And it was around the time where the revolution was, at the height of the revolution, when Pashinyan was imprisoned, he was in jail, then he came out of jail. So I was there and I witnessed everything. I filmed a lot of it. I immediately hired the crew there, and, we started working on this. And I'm very happy that I had that experience. When I told my, Chris, Hrair, and Kohar about my experience there, they said we should definitely do something about this. So now I think we should first do this project Bloodless first. And, the goal is to show the world that a fledgling, tiny little republic of Armenia, showed the whole world the blueprint of a bloodless revolution, that yes, in this day and age, you can change the government, you can change the state by peaceful means, and you don't have to resort to, violence. This is the message of the film.
Barit, as you were going through this revolution, did you realize that something drastic was being changed in Armenia, and our lives and Armenia's life and future is going to change forever? I mean, when you were in the midst of it, you didn't think maybe the government is going to come with soldiers and arrest everybody, or some massive crackdown is going to happen, or you were just going with the flow?
While, when I was there, yes, there were tense moments. There were concussion bombs a few times. There were minor injuries, but very minor. Pashinyan himself was injured. But it was the police were doing their job. I mean, their job was difficult too. They were trying to keep the peace. But the most amazing thing was what the youth did on the other end. And this was powered by the youth. It's true that the leader was Pashinyan, but it was really the youth that moved this forward. It was an amazing, extremely organized, it's not 100, 200, 300, or 1,000 kids. This was tens of thousands of kids doing the same exact thing, uniting together for the betterment of the country, the better future of Armenia. That's what they were striving for. And yes, there were some bad moments, but on the other hand, there were beautiful moments too. I can give you an example, which I filmed. This gentleman, when the protesters were walking in the streets of Yerevan, this Armenian guy came out of his oven. His bakery. It was a baker, a young baker. He came out of his bakery shop. He had a stack of lavash in his hand, and he was walking into the crowd and offering his lavash to the people, because they were walking all day for 3 to 4 hours, chanting and screaming, saying things like free independent students, free independent Armenia, happy Armenia. That's what they were yelling and screaming. And this guy he realized that these kids must be hungry because they've been in the streets for 3-4 hours, and he offered them his lavash, And I mean, these were amazing human experiences that I witnessed there. And that's why I said I can't not do nothing about this. So
Great, fantastic.
that's why I'm doing this film.
Yeah, fantastic experience. Chris, let's go to you as a final thoughts about the film, the organization's activities. The gala is just coming. What's your thoughts?
My thoughts is that we're at a unique time in history where you have the confluence of people and opportunity and now hopefully financial support and a foundation to be able to accomplish our mission of using documentary films to propagate the world over the information and knowledge that people need to have about our history, our heritage, and our culture so that they really understand who we are as Armenians. And I think that this is a unique moment in time because we are incredibly lucky to have Baret Maronian, who with all of the accolades and all the awards that he's won, he could be doing other projects, but he decided that his calling was to devote his life and his career to basically making documentary films that are Armenian themed. And we need to take advantage of that. He is an elite documentarian, and we have the opportunity now with this foundation and with the financial support that we expect to get to really launch the next set of projects that we've talked about this evening.
Great, great. We're coming at the end, Hrair, so you have the final thought.
Thank you for inviting us to the studio. I echo Chris's sentiment. I think we're very fortunate to have a story to tell. We have the artist who's capable of telling the story very effectively, very efficiently, and I hope that with our foundation, we will be able to reach out to our community and all the organizations that Baret mentioned, all the existing organizations who will support his work. And I don't think our story can be told in just 1, 2, or 4 film documentaries. There's a lot more to say. And I think this is the right time because we have the technology to be able to make these movies and be able to reach thousands of households. Just think of the number as far as efficiency. For about $15, Baret was able to reach 10,000 people for his Orphans of the Genocide movie, or 5,000 households for every $15 spent.
That's an inexpensive way, yes.
Right? So if you have a great project, you have something valuable you want to share with people, I think you'd be willing to spend $15. So I hope that even with other projects that will be more costly at $30, at $60, hopefully we'll get the support to justify Baret's hard work.
All right, thank you so much. I mean,
Thank you.
I really appreciate, plus I want to thank both Chris and Baret for being with us today and presenting the organization, the activities of the organization, as well as the tremendous work Baret is doing in our community. And it's just part of the Armenian cause and the fight for the Armenian issues. I really salute you guys for have the foresight to form this organization and support Baret's activities in film and documentary efforts. We really need them in our community. The Armenian community is desperately need to know the history. I mean, some of the things that I learned from talking to Baret as well as through his documentary films is amazing. I mean, it's just me, which is very passionate about the Armenian issues, to me it was news, and we need that in our community. We're going to wrap our show. I want to thank you again for being guest. Սիրելի պայգամներ, եկենք միասին սեպտեմբեր 7-ին ներկա լալու այս հայդակրին Տաղլյան Culture Center-ի մեջ եւ քաչալերենք Բարեդը եւ իր ընկերները հրաշալի գազམ་ագերբության so քիշեր բարի
Հաղորդման հովանավոր Dignity Health Glendale Memorial Hospital